Welcome to Turning Point, an original concept for television that brings you inside the private hearts of the world's most public people. A weekly half-hour series in which celebrities reveal the turning points that change their lives forever. The driving ambition, the accidents of fate, the bad breaks, and good timing that made them who they are today. Turning Point features Glenn Plaskin, the celebrated author and journalist whose penetrating interviews are read by millions in his column Turning Point. Syndicated by Tribune to over 70 newspapers across America.
You're going along in life for a while, and everything seems to be going fine. And then someone gets sick, somebody gets killed, you get divorced, you get married, you fall in love, you fall out of love, and everything changes after that.
Glenn Plaskin has an uncanny ability to draw people out, said Jacqueline Onassis.
Why didn't that marriage work?
I think that it didn't work because I believe that I would rather have 15 marriages or 55 relationships than stick in one that I'm not happy in.
Barbara Walters praised his easy style. He's relaxed and revealing about those he interviews.
What does all the money and the fame mean? What parts?
It means nothing. If I could wind up on your show after all this, how much could it be?
Plaskin's thorough, competent, and tough, said Playboy magazine.
Donald Trump, who's been having his problems, calls you an evil woman. Being married to you must be like living in hell.
The only thing I can say about Donald is, and I repeat it again, I wouldn't believe this man if his tongue was notarized.
Glenn Plaskin, whose intimate profiles of countless stars for the New York Daily News make him one of America's preeminent interviewers, now brings his special talent to television in a compelling new series that explores extraordinary turning points in people's lives. Turning Point. Tonight on Turning Point, Joan Collins, married 4 times, used and abused by men. Joan says Dynasty's Alexis made her a new woman.
But I like very much her forcefulness, her strength, her never giving up and being and succeeding in a man's world.
And Jackie Mason. Happiness and stardom eluded him for years, till his life was rescued by phenomenal success on Broadway.
What did this turning point and this whole experience of stardom teach you?
Never to come back on this show. No, it taught me.
It's the Steve Allen Limit Show.
In 1960, Jackie Mason was the hottest young comedian on network TV, schooled in yeshiva as a rabbi, and trained in the Borscht Belt as a comic. He was an unlikely blend of vulnerability and brashness.
Do you know that I used to be self-conscious to such an extent that I couldn't even talk to people? Would you believe it if I tell you that I was once so self-conscious that if I went to a football game and I saw the players get into a huddle, I used to think that they were talking about me? Let me just leave you with one... Oh, I'm sorry, I have to leave you now because I have another show in July. And even that one isn't definite. Incidentally, if any of you would like to see me perform again next week, get me a job.
Jackie was ambitious and determined to achieve superstardom. You once said that anything less than superstardom in show business was a failure. Why?
I didn't mean it literally. I meant that according to my talent. Here I am, one of the greatest talents that ever lived.
Modest, too.
That's right, and I don't know, it hurts me to even mention it, but I can't get over it. And if you are one of the greatest talents that ever lived, it's unfair and it's indecent to just be a minor, mediocre kind of a performer or to just be another personality. You should get what you deserve out of life. You didn't ask Abraham Lincoln to just be a congressman. You don't expect God to just walk around the neighborhood. You know, he's busy.
When did you know that comedy was your destiny?
I knew it when I became a rabbi, frankly, because I was admonishing people to live a clean life while I was trying to live as dirty a life as possible.
And you started appearing in the Catskills and elsewhere. When you were standing on the stage and you were making people helpless with laughter, what did that feel like to you?
It felt great. It always felt great. When you're working for money, here it doesn't feel so hot. But when you're working for money, I would say it feels great.
You were zooming along, and you got a contract with Ed Sullivan. Right. And one night, Ed put up a couple fingers, told you to wind down the act, and apparently Jackie Mason gives him the finger back.
He keeps showing me fingers, this guy. Every time I tell a good joke, huh?
Now, as when he raised the two fingers, the whole audience started to watch him raising fingers instead of watching my joke.
Who should I talk to? Everybody show me fingers. Let me show you my fingers. Listen here.
And I started to kibitz him about the fingers, totally innocently. I didn't know of any dirty gestures. I didn't even know what dirty gestures meant at that time. I had just been a rabbi 2 years before. Right after that, I was doing so bad that I could have been on your show twice a week. I was
we would have taken it.
And at that time, the idea of saying or doing something that might be considered somehow obscene or lewd or crude or vulgar, at that time was enough to ruin a person's career. Today, it would make you a star and a celebrity and a sensation.
Over 22 years, you tried a Broadway show that flopped. You tried sitcoms. You tried talk shows.
Right.
There were things that never opened.
Right.
You flopped in everything you tried.
Right. I noticed you're enjoying this.
I'm really...
Somehow you get the pleasure out of it. This is the first time you ever had a smile on your face. Human misery somehow is a pleasure to you. I noticed that.
Here you were so talented and so funny. What did you do with all this frustration?
Look, you remember the blondes we were talking about before? I spent a lot of time looking for them. I didn't catch too many, but it kept me busy. I would say that what I did was just think and all the time about when and how I could reverse the situation and become a big hit.
In 1986, everything in Jackie Mason's life changed. Jackie Mason's The World According to Me opened on Broadway, and Jackie was finally the hit he had always known he could be.
This is a whole different type of a show. It's the first show in the history of Broadway without furniture. There's no furniture in this show.
Would you agree that this was a major turning point in your life?
Of course, it was the biggest turning point in my life because it catapulted me into the major kind of stardom that I was dreaming about all my life.
Are you satisfied? Are you happy?
Much happy, I'll tell you the truth. I don't know if it's good for you that I'm such a sensation, but it's good for me.
You did pretty well in your life.
Right. And I deserve it, let's be honest. I'm still a nicer person than you.
Thank you.
Turning Point goes to London to talk to Joan Collins.
In the movies, Joan Collins was always in control, especially of men. She knew what she wanted and how to get it.
If I do not please you, you may send me back.
In real life, men had Joan eating out of their hands. At 17, Joan married Maxwell Reed and started the pattern of abuse by men. You married British actor Maxwell Reed. Is it true that he drugged and raped you on your first date, that he later tried to sell you off to an Arab sheik for 10,000 pounds?
Yes, that's true.
Why?
Why? Well, he probably needed the money. Why did he drug and rape me? I don't know why. He just... And the fact is that in that particular time, it was such a stigma to have been raped or to have been with a man without being married that...
You married him?
I married him. He was my favorite movie star, let me add that. His picture was stuck under my desk, and he was an extremely attractive man. And I just, being rather sexually ignorant, as everybody was in those days, I didn't know any better. I was very foolish.
Joan next said yes to Warren Beatty. Engaged, even pregnant, she had an abortion. They never married. Husband number 2 was Anthony Newley. Number 3 was record producer Ron Cass. Wannabe pop star Peter Holm was husband number 4. He cheated on Joan, threatened to kill her, and demanded $3 million after only 13 months of marriage. You said you made the biggest mistake of your life of all, which was your 4th marriage to Peter Holm. He petitioned courts for $80,000 a month alimony. He walked away with about $180,000 settlement. He got more than $2 million worth of goods and services during the short...
Did he? Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm reminding you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I must say the person I am today would never have married Peter Holm in 1985.
Never?
No, of course not. No, but you know, I mean, I'm not 20 years old or 30 years old anymore. I mean, hopefully I have learned a great deal from my mistakes.
You've gone through what I would call a remarkable transformation. And I think it may have begun, correct me if I'm wrong, with Alexis. In 1981, Joan Collins joined the cast of Dynasty. It saved her career, made her rich, and turned her attitude about men and marriage completely around. Alexis Carrington taught Joan Collins how to be a take-charge woman.
I don't know you or anyone else a thing. Get out of my sight, you miserable has-been.
Alexis always lets the men in her life know who's the boss.
Your lesson for today. I make and cancel my own reservations, and I run my own life. Blake Carrington is still a part of my life, and when I destroy him, it's not going to be in his hotel room. It's going to be in his boardroom.
I did learn a lot from Alexis, certainly not to be devious, but to stand up for myself I did, because this woman stood up for herself, and that's why she was so popular.
So your role in Dynasty was not only a tremendous turning point in your career, but it was a turning point for you as a woman.
I think so. Oh, definitely. Absolutely, because I was portraying a woman that I really wasn't, and learning from this character that I was playing.
Alexis is a temperamental, manipulative, devious bitch. Are you?
Bitch is, if bitch means being strong, assertive, standing up for your rights, speaking your mind, then yes, I'm a bitch.
Would you marry for number 5?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any point in getting married. Marriage is for children.
And now, here are some preview moments from future turning points. Glenn travels to Miami to talk to singing superstar Julio Iglesias in his fabulous Tahitian-style mansion by the sea. His voice alone has seduced millions of women. But Glenn discovers this legendary ladies' man is struggling with a personal turning point of his own.
Do you think it's possible to find a woman who you would be faithful to? In fact, let me ask you a question. Do you think it's possible, number one?
To be faithful?
Yes.
Faithful where? In the brains, in the body, in the legs?
Do you believe in fidelity?
Look at my eyes. If I live in fidelity, what question? No. Not in my case.
Why not?
Until now, I've been not faithful.
To any woman?
No. It's difficult, I think, difficult.
Sylvester Stallone recently told me that he likes the idea of fidelity. He just can't do it.
No, it's the same.
I know you've been married and you have
3 children.
3 wonderful children, and you love your children very much. Do you ever really realize that total love for a woman, do you think?
I don't think so.
You are at a kind of turning point now in your life. You said, I'm ready for love, but can't seem to find it. I can find many to love for an hour, but none for a long time. Do you think you will?
I hope. I hope. I don't know.
Glenn also talks with the beautiful Claudia Schiffer. At 20 years old, she has really arrived. Suddenly, Claudia is the world's hottest model. Sexy, sultry, seductive, sophisticated. Just a few years ago, she was a shy young schoolgirl, growing up in a small German town. From a photographer's studio in New York City, Claudia talks about her Cinderella turnaround to superstardom.
Most models start at the bottom. You started at the very top, a French L.
Yeah.
When you walked by that magazine stand and you saw your picture on the cover of a magazine, what was that like for you? Do you remember that first time?
Yeah, that was very funny. Because they have those kiosks in Paris, and they have big advertising for the magazine outside, and it was all over. And every time I went somewhere, I saw my face on the cover. It was very funny. It was a great feeling. I always had a big smile on my face.
How would you describe the Claudia before you were a famous model?
I was a polite child. I was very nice, and I wouldn't do any bad things. I was very shy as well.
A good girl.
A good girl.
Good German girl.
Very good German girl.
Who is this?
Oh, God.
Is she a friend of yours?
Yeah.
Do you recognize her?
Yeah.
Because this is not a shy girl. Tell me about this sexy creature. Is this
well,
you?
No, this is definitely not me myself. I tell you, but
this is your twin sister. Here you were 3 years ago, unknown. Now you're a public person, and I notice in the magazines they even just use the word Claudia, like Cher. You know, everybody knows who you are. How do you think that's affected your maturity as a woman?
I just became much more confident and grown up, much faster than all of my friends back home. When I go back home now, I see what kind of a big difference are between my girlfriend and me.
I think there are a lot of girls in the world who would say to themselves, Claudia Schiffer has everything. She's beautiful, she's rich, she's successful. Do you have everything?
No, I don't think I have everything. Lots of other things that I still want.
Turning Point visits Leona Helmsley, reigning queen of a $100 million a month empire.
Am I comfortable? I make a living.
As billionaire Harry Helmsley's wife, she had it all. Money, power, and most of all, love. But things changed forever. Harry Helmsley suffered a stroke when Leona was convicted of tax fraud. Out on bail in a luxury suite overlooking Manhattan, she talks with Glenn about this tragic turn.
They say you're a crook.
Who says that? I'm not a crook. As a matter of fact, who said that about me?
That Mr. Ranzel Pearson,
He's not anybody.
who wrote The Queen of Mean. What's with him?
I think he's a sick young man. He's certainly not a reporter. He's a sleaze. This nothing. Never even spoke to me. I never said hello to the man.
Why would a woman who's sitting on her husband's empire of $5 billion, who has more than $100 million coming in a month, want to evade $1.7 million in federal taxes?
That's the $64 question. It is not so.
So you're saying you're innocent?
I'm absolutely not guilty. I've gone through holy you-know-what here. For no reason. For no reason. The only reason it is really is that I'm Leona Helmsley.
John Gotti and Ivan Boesky and Klaus von Bülow up for murder get off scot-free, but Leona Helmsley gets what?
I got $25 million bail, $7 million in fines, which I had to put up, and 4 years in jail for a crime that I did not. There is no crime.
You were framed.
I was framed, is right, and it will be proven.
That's some turning point, isn't it?
Some turning point.
There's another cost here. As if you being sentenced to jail wasn't enough. What has it done to your husband?
That's a very high cost. That's a very high cost.
I know it's difficult to talk about, but Harry's suffered from a couple of small strokes. What if you lose Harry?
Nothing will get me through anything. I'm not going to lose Harry. I'm not losing Harry.
Turning Point, a weekly half-hour television series from Rashleen Productions.